Brother Edward Michog, an elder in the Coon Rapids congregation, has been an integrity keeper for over 44 years. Encouraged by the example of tested integrity keepers. Brother Michog.
About 150 miles northwest of this arena lies a tiny body of water. It's an area of about 2 square miles. It is the source of one of the greatest rivers in the world. This river is nearly 2,500 miles long, and into its basin empties nearly all the rivers from the Rocky Mountains to the Allegheny Mountains. Over 1,250,000 square miles. Its name means Father of Waters, and to most of us it is commonly called the Mississippi River. With these facts in mind, I ask you, would you be willing to cross this mighty river in your bare feet? Your immediate reaction undoubtedly would be no. As you contemplate this awesome task that your mind pictures, do you realize that this giant river is but 12 feet wide and only 18 inches deep as it trickles from its source of Lake Itasca? The point I'm making is this. What may appear to be a giant task may not be as difficult as we imagine. If you carefully take small steps, plant your feet firmly on the large rocks that protrude out of the water at this source, you can traverse this river without getting wet. Millions have done so to date. Brothers, integrity keeping is much the same. It requires small, carefully placed steps, possibly on a daily basis, based and planted upon the rock-like foundation of the truth and upon Jehovah God, our rock and our salvation. The Bible principle at Luke 16:10 states, "The person faithful in least is faithful in much." Throughout the centuries, we read in God's Word of a great group, a great cloud of integrity keepers. We will mention just 3 today. Job, David, and the greatest of all, Christ Jesus. All of us are encouraged by their example of integrity keeping. Each one served faithfully in little and in severe tests of their faith. If you'll turn your Bible to James 5, verse 10 and 11, the disciple James speaks about Job and encourages us to consider his pattern and his endurance and how Jehovah blessed him. Quoting from James 5:10 and 11, "Brothers, take as a pattern of the suffering of evil and the exercising of patience the prophets who spoke in the name of Jehovah. Look, we pronounce happy those who have endured. You have heard of the endurance of Job, and you have seen the outcome Jehovah gave, that Jehovah is very tender in affection and merciful." Of David, Paul expressed these words at Acts 13:22, that he was a man of agreeable, Jehovah said, to my heart, who will do all the things that I desire. Another integrity keeper. And of the greatest, as I mentioned, Christ Jesus. At Hebrews 14:15, we're told that he was blameless, without fault, setting a perfect model of integrity. But what about our time? Do we have faithful brothers that we can read about, that we can listen to, and that we're encouraged to follow closely their example as they follow Jesus' example? We certainly can. And for all of us to gain encouragement and strength, we're going to interview some of our older brothers and sisters and also some of our younger ones who have displayed in their lives the course of integrity keeping. I'd like to introduce you to Brother Arlie Lunn. Brother Lunn is from the Coon Rapids congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Brother Lunn, how long have you associated with the truth?
It was early in the year of 1940.
All right. Could you explain just briefly how you were introduced to the truth?
Yes, my fleshly brother got the truth and became a pioneer. So he came to me and said I had to change religions. He gave me a stack of books and gave me the address of the book study.
Okay, and then what did you do with the books?
Oh, I read them. It was kind of boring to start with. And I don't know if I got anything out of them, but I read, I knew I should because my brother was a pretty reliable person. But anyway, I did read the books.
Good. Now you were told that you should go to a convention, right? In Detroit, was it?
Yes, it was Detroit, Michigan, 1940.
All right. And you also had another choice. Either it was Detroit or the World's Fair, right?
World's Fair.
Okay. Now, I bet you everybody in the audience will know the choice you took, won't we? Which was that choice?
It was the World's Fair.
The World's Fair. Well, I bet your brother, when he got back from Detroit, he had some strong words for you, right?
Yes, he encouraged me to go to this Tuesday night book study, which really was a lifesaver for me.
All right. At that book study, there was a couple of people there, brothers and sisters, who had quite an impact on you, didn't they?
Yes, it was Evelyn and Ernest Hillman. They were very zealous in the truth, and they really, in fact, Evelyn said I had to hurry up and get in the truth. Armageddon was going to come any day, and not to fool around.
All right. They weren't going to fool around either, were they? What decision did they make to do?
Yes, I asked Evelyn then one day. She kept after me, and I said, what shall I do then? Yeah, I want to get saved or miss Armageddon. So she said her and her brother were going to put in for territory to go pioneering in the spring. They invited me to go along with them, and I took the invitation.
Excellent. Now, there's a question, Brother Lunn, that I think is probing here. You weren't sure this was the truth yet, right?
That's right.
And you signed up for pioneering.
Yes.
How many hours had you spent already in the field service to equip you for that pioneer work?
As close as I can figure. The figure sticks in my mind that it was 9 hours.
9 hours, and that prepared him for the pioneer work. And you didn't realize it was the truth yet, right?
No, I certainly didn't.
Could you imagine that today? Pioneering, and after 9 hours, you weren't baptized either, were you?
No.
When did you get baptized?
Well, that was 4 months later at the St. Louis Convention, August 10th, 1940.
Good.
41, that
41, yes. Where were you sent to pioneer? Where was your territory?
We had the whole Morrison County, where Little Falls is in, and that also was the headquarters, or the congregation was located at Little Falls.
What type of territory that you were sent to? What kind of a territory was it?
This was 95% Catholic, and is also the Camp Ripley was 7 miles north of Little Falls, so the city itself was full of military men, and anyone running loose of military age was in danger.
And you were a prime candidate, right?
That's right.
On your first examination to the doctor for your registration, physical examination, what was the verdict in regard to you?
Well, I saw this with my own eyes. I saw the note that the doctor had written on my examination, and he said, not fit for military service.
But once you informed the draft board of your change of religion, and you appealed for a minister's classification, what happened?
I was put in 1A classification.
Kind of a sudden change, wasn't it? In your territory, Brother Lunn, how did the people treat you now? This 95% Catholic and you are Jehovah's Witnesses. We weren't very popular back then. Were you harassed?
Yes, it was very hostile. You certainly weren't welcome those days, and especially the war spirit was very high, and they were very patriotic, so it was difficult.
You gave me an example about street witnessing one day. You were on one corner and the rest of the brothers were scattered around on other corners. came evening, you all got together and shared your experiences. What happened to the others that didn't happen to you?
Well, I want to make it plain that I wasn't really hiding, Brother Michog, but I had a corner that they missed. And the others were picked up and had to go up to the police headquarters. And I didn't know until we came home that evening, was talking over our experiences, and I find out that they'd been up to the police headquarters and they missed me.
Right. Well, finally, your test of neutrality, your neutrality was tested. What happened? They were sent you off somewhere?
Well, then one morning I come to get my mail, and the postmaster, he beckoned me over there to his window, and he says, the U.S. Marshals are here to pick you up today. If you want to escape, you better get out of town right away. Well, I didn't think I better run, so I went to the sheriff's office and said, I hear you're looking for me. So they put me under arrest, and it wasn't more than 10, 15, just a few minutes later, here come one of my back calls to bail me out.
All right, but then what did they do? Being that you were there, they did something to you that prevented you from continuing the pioneer work. What was that?
Well, it was nice to see that man there to bail me out, but it was too late. They put me in chains, put the handcuffs on me, and two great big huge men hauled me away. That's the last of those Little Falls, and it silenced my phonograph.
It silenced your phonograph. You played it just recently again, didn't you?
Yeah, we went up to the dedication, which was really inspiring to me. It was really a joy to see such a large congregation, because when we went there, even the ones that claimed to be Jehovah's Witnesses weren't publishers.
Thank you. Another point, Brother Lund. You were sentenced to how long in Sandstone?
It was 3 years sentence that made it 27 months and 20 days.
And then when you got out, the brothers were right there to assist you, didn't
yes,
they? What did they do? Could you explain briefly?
Yeah, then the wonderful brothers at Brainerd, we had to have a job or something to get out of prison. You had to have some security. So the brothers in Brainerd hired me to work on their farm. So there I had a headquarters for pioneering again, which I did on a bicycle. Now, I'd departed with my car, so I worked Crow Wing County mostly on a bicycle.
Right. Then you were sent to Mound. All along, Brother Lund, you had a difficulty physically. What happened in 37?
Well, I had polio in 37, and I didn't have this brace on at that time, so my foot flopped, just kind of like a loose piece of meat. It was very difficult to get around.
You only learned about the brace recently, right?
Well, yes, it's been some time ago, but at work, another person had that same difficulty.
Well, we certainly appreciate your experience, Brother Lund. We thank you, and you certainly exemplify an integrity keeper. We'd like to introduce you now to Brother Richard and Levon Heidemann. They're from the Brooklyn Park congregation. Could you briefly tell us, Levon, how long you've been in the truth, and then Richard, you?
I've been in the truth about 20 years.
I've been 18. That tells me then, Levon, you were first contacted. What appealed? What did the truth, how did it appeal to you?
Oh, well, I had been searching for, had a question concerning the untimely death of 3 of my friends. And the witnesses were able to provide me with a satisfying answer. My sister Lorraine had been studying with them for about 3 months, and I began to sit in on her studies.
Okay, now, once you begin to learn of the truth or the answers, you began talking to your husband, undoubtedly.
That's right.
Did he like this?
No.
Well, you wanted to continue your study, so what did you have to do to continue your study at Lorraine?
Well, he didn't let me use the car to go over there for the studies, so our washing machine was broke down, so I would go over to her house and sit in on the studies, at the same time wash clothes.
And then obviously you saw the need to get to some meetings. You had to do something unusual to get to the meetings, at least at one time, right?
Yes, one time in order to get there, because he wouldn't let me have the car, I made arrangements for a sister to pick me up. And in order for me to get to her, he wouldn't let me out of the house, so I snuck out the bedroom window and met her down the street.
Right. Good effort on your part. How about opposition now? Obviously, as you're going along, you're getting opposition. But you told me that you moved to a new location. Maybe your husband thought, well, that'll get a good way to get rid of the witnesses, but you were turned over to someone, right?
Yes, I was, and that really was a blessing because she only lived a block away from me, and which really turned out well because one day when I was coming home from service, he was home and he got very angry and he called the sister and told her she was never allowed over to our house again, but that worked out okay because I could go to her house for studies.
Just a block away. Did conditions get better then in your house, or what recourse did you finally have to take?
No, conditions didn't get any better. Like I said, then he used to lock me in the bedroom so I couldn't get out of the house for meetings. And the only way he could hold me back was by literally doing so physically. So he'd take a hold of me, lift me up, put me in the bedroom, and lock the door. And I couldn't climb out this bedroom window at our new house. So it got to the point to where I finally saw a lawyer and filed for legal separation.
All right, and then obviously you had to tell your husband. You tell Richard that you're getting a legal separation. Was that easy to do?
No, it wasn't. I was very scared that night, and finally, through much prayer to Jehovah, this was on a Sunday night, and he was going to be served the papers the following Monday morning at work. And through much prayer, though, I finally, late that night, told him that he was going to have the papers served. He was very angry and upset, naturally, and told me I was breaking up our home. But I told him the only way that I would stop the papers being served would be if he would promise that he would allow me to have the truth, go to meetings and service and conventions and ultimately baptism. Well, he said no, and then later on that night he finally changed his mind and he told me if my religion meant that much, I could have it.
But as you went along now, Levon, obviously he sometimes would forget about what he promised, right?
Yes. Well, one thing I did remind him of that night is that I told him the lawyer said those papers would be on file and they could be served any time. And so the day I was going to be baptized, he was going to stop me from leaving the house. And then I reminded him of what the lawyer had said, and he let me go.
Interesting, Levon. I believe, Richard, you came to the baptism, didn't you? But go ahead.
Yes, I did.
And what did he say when he got to the baptism, Levon? It's an interesting point.
Well, when I was being immersed, someone overheard him saying that I hope they hold her under.
You didn't really feel that way, did you, Richard?
I sure did.
Well, all right. 4 months later came the district assembly in Winnipeg. Levon, you earned money to go there. You thought, well, even if he doesn't permit me to go, I'll go. You planned for it, didn't you?
Yes.
But what happened just a couple days before the assembly?
Well, 2 nights before the assembly, he asked me if I still wanted to attend the assembly that was in Winnipeg. And I said I certainly did. And he says, well, if I could get a babysitter for our 2 children, he would take me. And he did.
Yes. And finally, toward the end of that assembly, Levon, you noticed kind of a change over Richard. What he began doing at the assembly?
Well, he astounded everybody because all the friends knew how opposed he was, and he began singing at the assembly. And I didn't know any better than they did why he was doing that.
Okay, and Richard, when you got back then, undoubtedly you figured this has got to be the truth. I'm going to get to all the meetings. Was that your reaction?
No, I went to a couple and I didn't care for what I heard, and I let the brothers know that quite clearly.
Yes. Okay, then how did you gradually become interested? What really took place?
Well, because of Levon and the action that she had taken, I could see that it was very important to her. And of course, being friends with the brothers and sisters, they invited her to many doings and to meals, including myself. And I started to appreciate the brothers as friends, so then I started to look into it a little closer.
And that was the spring of 67. You became active in the service when?
In the fall of 67, and I was baptized in October of 68.
Right. Maybe, Richard, you could briefly explain the issue of blood came up with your family. Could you tell us what happened?
Yes, in March of 70, we had our 3rd girl, and she was premature, 2 pounds. And the Abbott Hospital didn't have the facilities to care for her, so we had to have her transferred to General Hospital. And on my arrival there, a woman doctor approached me, and over the issue of blood, she wanted permission to give the baby blood, and I says, no, I couldn't do that. Then she says, well, then I might as well go in and pull the plug out. And I said, well, if you could live with that,
you go ahead and pull the plug. But I couldn't live with it if I gave you permission to give her blood because it was against my religious belief. Well, thank you, Richard Levon. We appreciate your integrity keeping. Now we'd like to introduce you to Roy and Phyllis Hord from the Pine River congregation. Roy and Phyllis, would you tell us how long you've been associated as baptized witnesses?
I've been associated since 1941, and I was baptized in 1943.
Phyllis?
And I was raised in the truth, but I was baptized in 1940.
Fine. That's about 887 years of faithful service, drop to zero. During many years of integrity keeping, you've undoubtedly had many experiences, favorable and unfavorable. Brother Hort, we'll start with you. The early 40s were war years. Could you tell us some of the problems you had to face?
Well, I was involved, like Brother Lund here, with the draft situation, and I received a 3-year sentence in prison, and I served the same amount that Arlie here mentions, 2720. And they were difficult times.
All right. There was another experience you had that was very unusual. In 1943, Minneapolis was a key city. The work was banned in Canada. And many of our brothers in Canada wanted to come to the assembly, didn't they?
Yes.
And many came to the assembly, right?
True.
Now, what happened that you had to help these brothers? What did you do to play a prominent role that these brothers were able to go back to Canada?
Well, at that time, the religion was banned in Canada, but they came over here trying to obey our belief that do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together, and they couldn't do that in Canada. Because of this large assembly in Minneapolis at the auditorium, why they came over, and the FBI and many different authorities was looking for them. And when the assembly was over, they were having difficulty to get back. They could not find their way back to the Canadian border.
Right. But you were there with some kind of a vehicle? Was it a big truck?
Yes, I was used quite prominently in getting nearly 100 back to Canada during that time.
One truck?
One truck.
Okay. So we won't go into detail because obviously, like Brother Hord says, maybe the authorities are still wondering how they could do that. But you got them to the Canadian border and they got through. Now, when you were in prison, obviously right after the assembly you were sentenced. What took place in prison a number of times?
Well, they were still trying to find a solution to that Canadian problem, and so I was approached while I was already incarcerated up in Sandstone, and for a few months the FBI would come up there with their stenographers, and they'd take me out of the cell and take me over to the office and do a lot of questioning, taking everything down in detail as to what transpired. In other words, they were trying to convict me of aiding that many brothers.
Right. You were only 24 years old then and very newly baptized, so certainly that was a very serious trial for you. Now, Brother Hord, if you would have been convicted, what could have been your sentence?
Well, they told me when they were threatening me that I would never live to see it because it would be well over 100 years in prison.
Right. Okay, you've had special privileges. Could you explain just briefly some of these?
Well, I think one of the greatest that my wife and I have enjoyed is that we have a daughter that's been pioneering for 20 years. So we certainly have enjoyed that. We also pioneered in Canada. The society were looking for those to witness into the island areas of Lake of the Woods, and we were given that assignment, and we pioneered for a month, calling on all of the places up there, and we received many Watchtower subscriptions.
And on your job, there was a decision that you wanted to go to the assembly and serve at the assembly, but your employee didn't want to agree with you at first, did he?
No, they told me that if I was going to take that much time off, I would be fired. And I said, well, you'll have to fire me. And he said, well, we'll let you know. But they waited the last to the last day or so before they said, well, go ahead to your convention and come back.
Sister Hord, all during this time, you had a few problems. Obviously, your husband off in jail. You also had how old of a baby?
4 months.
4 months. How did you get by?
Well, I ran a rooming house, and I had several men rooming there. And then I went out and cleaned house, took her along, went out and cleaned house a couple days a week. And so we made it that way.
Right. You had a congregation book study there, you say?
We had congregation book study in our home and a service center, and the brothers kept me busy helping them keep their books.
Right. And then a couple times a month, of course, you visited Roy in prison in Sandstone. Now, you told me one point, interesting, you had quite a change of circumstances. You came from what kind of a home?
Well, I had very good parents that always took care of me. And then I got married, and I had a husband that took care of me. And all of a sudden, I was on my own. I'd never been on my own before.
Right. That was certainly quite a change. Well, we thank you, Brother and Sister Hort, for your example in integrity keeping. We'd like to introduce you to Sister Linnell Sullivan. She's from the Ham Lake congregation. Linnell, how long have you been associated with the truth?
Well, my parents first began studying with Jehovah's Witnesses when I was about 4 years old, so I've been around the truth for about 13 years.
And you were baptized at?
14.
14. All during your school years, Linnell, you've made a defense of the truth. Did you do this on your own, or did your parents go with you?
Well, in kindergarten, my mom wrote a note and explaining to the teacher my stand as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But from first grade on up, I've been responsible as regards to the truth.
Good. Now, you said to me that this brochure that we received from the Faithful Slave has been especially a help to you just recently. Could you explain?
Well, when I first entered high school 2 years ago, we had a homeroom teacher come visit our school to answer any questions that we had. And I found this a good opportunity to leave the school brochure with him to explain any beliefs that might come in conflict with any certain school activities.
Right. Now, during your school years, Linnell, you didn't really have any outright opposition, did you?
No, I didn't receive any direct opposition, but behind my back I have heard negative comments about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. Now, all students get a chance to engage in extracurricular activities. How did you deal with this in your regard?
Well, last year I was asked to become part of the National Honor Society. And I really didn't know what the club was about, so I approached some of my teachers and asked what it had to deal with. They said I had to serve the school, and it involved such things as sponsoring school dances, raising money during the holidays, and sponsoring the Bloodmobile drive. And after learning these things, I refused to join.
Good. At opportune times, Linnell, while you were in school, what have you done to take advantage of the opportunity to increase your witnessing?
Well, in the school year there are holidays, so it's a good time to witness to teachers and schoolmates. And also we get vacation time during the winter and the spring. I use this time to pioneer, and also in the summertime.
How many different times have you auxiliary pioneered?
Well, since my baptism, I pioneered 5 times.
Excellent. Thank you, Linnell. Appreciate your integrity keeping. We'd like to introduce you now to Amy Eliason from the Brooklyn Park congregation. Amy, how long have you been associated with the truth?
Well, I was born into the truth, and my dad was also raised in the truth, and my grandpa was also one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
For many years, wasn't he? I believe it dates back into the 30s. Now, being born around the truth, Amy, doesn't automatically mean that the truth is your own. But how long have you actively pursued the truth?
Well, I have been a publisher for 10 years.
Okay, since you were about 6 years old. Now tell us, Amy, obviously at school you look athletic. Obviously extracurricular activities could appeal to you. Did they appeal to you? Did you enjoy swimming and other things?
Well, no, I was pressured to join dance line, cheerleading, and also synchronized swimming, but I didn't join them because of the fact that I would distract from my time from studying the Bible and also homework.
Good point. Now, she enjoyed it, but she saw the danger. Now, what did you do in regard to holidays and other activities and also pep tests?
Well, in homeroom we would have parties, and the children and the kids in the class, they would pick the kind of party you wanted. And so they would pick a holiday party, and a classmate of mine is also Jehovah's Witness, and we told the teacher that we wouldn't be able to, and they arranged it so it wouldn't be a holiday party and that we could attend.
All right. Now, you've been a witness since you were born. You've witnessed a long time. Now, at school, you get opportunities occasionally to share the truth. Tell us what you did with one teacher.
Well, I had a social studies teacher who was talking about Hitler, and I brought in the article about Dachau, and he enjoyed the article, the whole magazine, and he really liked it a lot.
And you also were able to leave the Live Forever book with one of your classmates?
Yes, I left it with a girl who was just digging through my bag, and she pulled it out, and I said, well, how about I demonstrate for that? And she said that maybe she would like it. Well, I went back, and she took the book and bought it for her father, and now I'm going back and trying to get in contact with them and see if they're still interested.
Sure. Now, you weren't baptized. In fact, you're not baptized yet. You couldn't auxiliary pioneer, therefore. So, have you put forth effort to try to be equivalent to an auxiliary pioneer, even though you're not baptized?
Yes, I did. Last summer, during the summer months, I tried to put in 40 hours a month, and I achieved it one month, and then the next month I put 30 in.
Sure. I understand you're planning to be baptized at this assembly?
Yes, I am. I've went over the questions, and I've been approved to be baptized.
Good. We appreciate Amy, and we want to certainly encourage you to continue to be among the brothers and sisters, and we welcome you as a new sister. We certainly want to thank the brothers and sisters for their encouraging experiences to aid us to be integrity keepers. But brothers, every one of us must be an integrity keeper. No matter what test, every one of us must see what's involved, namely Jehovah's name and integrity to Jehovah. Our brothers saw that, and we saw the examples they set as an integrity keeper. Now, will we do the same? We want to please Jehovah, don't we? We want to always keep in mind that we do not want to displease Him. We do not want to gain disfavor from Jehovah. Turn to Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse 5 to 7, because we always want to keep in mind this scripture. Notice, Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 7. It says, trust in Jehovah with all your heart. Do not lean upon your own understanding. In all your ways take notice of Him, and He Himself will make your paths straight. Do not become wise in your own eyes. Fear Jehovah and turn away from bad. Whereas, brothers, the very opposite of this is true. Proverbs 29:25 says, trembling at men lays a snare, but he that is trusting in Jehovah will be protected. Yes, the fear of man is a snare, and by it many have stopped keeping integrity, and they have fallen from Jehovah's favor and protection, and are in a dangerous and precarious position. Brothers, may that not happen to any one of us. Let us carefully walk. Let us place our feet firmly on Jehovah God, the rock-like foundation of the truth. He will provide all that we need through His Word and His organization to give us practical wisdom and guidance that we need so desperately during these last days. And these things will enable us, if we stay close to Jehovah, to be a continued, tested integrity keeper.